Welcome to Just Another Football Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see our faces this time. And this, with it being the international break, we've decided to do something a bit different and go through a team, seeing how we'd improve it, long and short-term decisions, and going from there. How are you, Harry?
I'm not bad, mate. I'm not bad. We're just going to get into the depths of Arsenal. So I'm sure as this discussion goes on, I'll become a bit more animated. But I'm pretty neutral at the moment, mate. It's been a long international break, though. Crikey.
It's felt really long.
They always drag on, don't
they?
they?
But this one has felt longer than most. Like when people start talking about the Premier League, I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, so we'll go through the manager. We'll go through the squad. What we make of each player, probably, and then areas and suggestions we'd look to improve, and maybe some names that we think would suit the role. So
yeah, we just want to prefix this with as well. This it's going to come across as sort of quite a biased show because obviously I'm an Arsenal fan, but this is something we do plan to do with other teams. So. Yeah. If you have any suggestions for the club that you support and you think you can add anything to the discussion, we are going to be doing it for, I think, most Premier League teams and maybe even beyond. So certainly we'd like to get people on, like to get their insight into the different qualities and how teams can improve. But we're going to start with Arsenal. I mean, we can just say because they're first in the Premier League alphabet. So that's why we've gone with them.
On a side note, it used to confuse me. People would put either Bournemouth first because of AFC Bournemouth.
No, they're gone, mate.
They're gone now, aren't they? Yeah, true.
Well, also, the AFC Bournemouth, the A in AFC stands for Athletic, doesn't it?
So it would be behind.
So Arsenal. Actually, it would be after Arsenal, yeah.
You say first in one table.
Yeah, we always start the season first. You can never get any better. We can never go up the table. Yeah. It's only going to get worse, or at best it will stay, and usually it gets worse.
So first is Arteta. Now, Arteta's a good manager. He's clearly a good manager and he knows his stuff. But can you win a title with him? In 4 years, can he be the guy that takes you past Klopp, Poch, if he's at Man United, or like that ilk of manager, that top manager? And I think if you're gonna sack him now, and if you're gonna trust him for all the next 4 years. Because it feels weird to say sacking him now, but just because if you sack him now, you can get a Poch, or you can get like an Allegri who's available, or you can get.
Okay, so I don't think Poch would happen in any case. I mean, he was available when we got Arteta.
But I think that was the £12 million he had left in his contract. So he had this deal where he couldn't move to another Premier League team. He wouldn't get the.
Yeah, we did buy Arteta out of Man City though, obviously for less.
Yeah. But I mean, you can get to Germany and get Nagelsmann.
Want me to be honest? So obviously there's two things you're looking at there. There's managers that are currently out of work, so available, and managers that can be bought out of their contracts. I think it's unlikely that we'd buy anyone out of contract. I think it's unlikely that we're looking for a new manager anytime soon. True. My take on it. It's always difficult when a new manager comes in, especially when you've got sort of a big rebuilding job like we do, to just be of the perspective that you can only start judging them at some point down the line, right? So whether that's next summer when we've got some players out of contract and we can move those on and do some recruitment, whether it's 2 years' time, whether it's 3 years' time, because the problem is, from a fan's perspective, there are games going on. There's a game every week. So you're not going to be going into it with the attitude, and he won't either, the manager. He's not going to be looking at it and going, yeah, but judge me in 2 or 3 years. He'll be looking to get results. You have to get results because that's what gets you that extra time. That's what gets people on board. And I know, obviously, part of how you're playing comes with it, and part of your identity and the philosophy of what you're trying to build comes with it. But you have to be getting results in the meantime. So it's a really difficult argument to make that you can't judge him now. You have to judge what's going on now, but you have to asterisk it with this is the biggest rebuilding job that a manager has had to do at Arsenal in 20, 25 years, right?
Yeah,
Probably since Wenger himself came in.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say even bigger than when Wenger came in, because he came in and there was still
Yeah, because when Wenger came in, we just finished in the top 4 with Bruce Rioch. I mean, he had a poor season, but we'd finished in the top 4 is only because of what had come before under the previous management and where we'd been winning leagues with George Graham that, they kind of just made a cutthroat decision, get rid of him and try someone new, because it was obvious it wasn't working. We weren't playing well. And, but this is different. We were mid-table when he came in. We're still mid-table. The way we're playing doesn't suggest that we're going to finish much higher than that at the moment. And it's a really difficult rebuilding job he's got on his hands. What I would say is that the managers you've kind of identified that are available, do I think had they come in when he came in, would they have done a much better job? Probably not, to be honest. And they might be better managers and they might have proven themselves, whereas he hasn't. Obviously, this is his first job in management. But he's come in. I don't know what position we were in the league on the exact date he joined, but it wouldn't have been much higher than where we finished. We finished 8th. We were probably 8th when he came in, if not worse. Yeah. He's won an FA Cup. He's had success against certain teams that we just weren't competing against at various points last campaign. And I think it's difficult to kind of at this stage go, it's obviously not working. We need to get rid of him. After the Aston Villa game, I saw a tweet from a journalist that I'm not going to name, but he's one of the worst football journalists on the platform, which basically said, imagine if Arteta were Solskjaer after we got beaten by Villa. And I sort of thought to myself, that's a really, really ignorant point to make, because he's been in the job for a year less. He's had a quarter of the budget.
I also don't think the comparison...
They're not comparable projects. No. It's exactly that, and that's the point I was going to go on to make. Arteta is going to succeed or fail on his own terms, and there's no need to compare him to other managers that are currently in different jobs with different ambitions, different budgets, different squads. They're not comparable. It's like comparing apples and oranges. It doesn't fly. So with the manager, if you want to look at what we've done so far this season, I think that it's been a very mixed start to the campaign. I think it's an exceptional campaign in the sense that obviously we've got no fans with the COVID situation. We've got the fact that there was no pre-season. And I think, you're seeing a lot of injuries at the moment. There's no coincidence with that. Yeah. It's very difficult for players at the moment, especially when we have unnecessary international breaks. But I mean, that's a separate point. And I think we've had a pretty tough fixture list. I mean, you could probably name on one hand the number of teams that have had a harder start to the season than we do. However, if you'd said to me before the start of the campaign, these are your first 8 games, how many points would you like from them? That's different from what I'd expect from them. But how many points would you like to see us have accumulated? I'd probably have said more than 12. And I know, we had a good win against Man United, but then we've had a couple of losses I wouldn't expect. And it kind of evens itself out a little bit. It's more the manner of kind of the way we've played this season in certain games and overall. I mean, we've had 8 games, we've scored 9 goals.
That's the issue. I think we'll get into that, but
it is an issue, and that is that when it comes on to the players we've got, especially, it is an issue. But ultimately, as a manager, you expect to get more out of your team than a goal per game. Arteta's he's not a fool. He will not be happy with the way we're playing at the moment, irrespective of results. He won't be happy with what we're doing. I mean, we've played 8 games. We've created 8 big chances in 8 games. It says it all to me. It's kind of harder to have a higher ceiling than where we are at the moment. Given the way we're playing and performing in some of these matches.
What about the signings you made over the summer?
So that is what I would get onto. I think we had a good transfer window. I really do. If you look at the players we've brought in, Willian obviously is the example that perhaps people are less satisfied with. I think he's been very underwhelming since he came from Chelsea. And the only thing with that signing that I could think of at the time as a possible benefit and reason to do it is he's Premier League proven. He knows what to expect from it. There's no excuses you can make for him that you could make for other signings that we've made and have made since. That there's that kind of adaptation period. Doesn't speak the language, doesn't know the culture, physically isn't at the level. He's got all of these things, right? So you expect him to come in and hit the ground running, and he just hasn't. So that as a signing hasn't gone as planned yet. It's difficult to cast him off after 8 games, but certainly he's becoming the new boo boy. I think if fans were in the ground, you can sense it, right? I have a season ticket. You sense when certain players are out of favour. I certainly think he's one of them.
And
However,
I also say because of his age, he has to. It's not like he's 21.
Definitely.
And he has
and
to
it might not be fair. You're absolutely right. It might not be fair either, but he's come from Chelsea. And there's always this kind of notion where when a player comes from a rival, it's kind of, you don't start from scratch with them. You kind of start from they need to come in and prove themselves, because you're so used to booing them and shouting at them when they're playing at your ground in the past. You kind of, I'm not saying when Willian came in, I actively disliked him, but it's kind of like, why have Chelsea let him come to us? Why did Chelsea let David Luiz come to us? Why did Chelsea let Petr Cech come to us? Why did Man United sell us Mikel Silvestre? You look at some of these players we brought in from Premier League rivals, not just the profile, but I look at it and I think, I've never been keen on signing players from rivals the way we have. I mean, obviously, a high-profile example against that would be someone like Sol Campbell, but generally, it doesn't really have success for us, or hasn't had success for us.
And the Tottenham team then was different to the Tottenham team now.
Absolutely. So, on Willian, I think, as you said, his age, he's got a 3-year contract. If this is what we're getting out of him in year one, and I'm not saying he's not going to get better.
It's a lot of money as well.
It's his wages will be up there with. I know it was a free contract, but we know how free contracts work in this day and age. Free. Yeah, it was on a free, but we know how it works in this day and age. The money just goes to the player rather than the club. There's a signing on fee, and your wages are usually higher.
Yeah.
So with Willian, I've been underwhelmed with him. However, I think the other signings we've made it.
So who else?
Been
Party.
Good. Gabriel.
Yeah,
Saliba. We brought back Dani Ceballos. You can kind of include Aubameyang, not necessarily in the signings, but we extended him. And I think at the time it was a good bit of business. I still think it will prove to be, even though we'll probably get onto him a bit later on. I think that it will be a move that I was on board with it. You won't find many Arsenal fans that didn't want him to extend his contract. So I'm sure we'll get on to discussing him. But if you look at some of the actual signings we made, I think Gabriel's been exceptional.
Gabriel's my favourite at that.
I think he's been exceptional.
Yeah, he's a ball player. I think he's completed the most ground, most distance passing wise of any.
He might have done. He's certainly up there as well in the number of completed passes, and that's with he didn't play against Liverpool, so I think
he's the right age. He's the
right profile. Right profile. 100%. They're the sort of signings that you make, and they sort of. You're very unlikely to be left red-faced with them because he's 22. We're signing for 27 million. Even if a couple of years down the line it hasn't quite worked out, I still think you're going to get something like 15 or 20 back from him, just because.
I'd say 30. Just because
there is that scope to improve. Do you know what I mean? So, and it's very rare that you sign a player of that age and suddenly you're just left with them. You can't get rid of them, like some of the other centre-halves we've got. To be honest with you,
look at who left to Hertha Berlin. He only went on loan. Guendouzi, like what he signed him for like 2-3 mil.
And even though you could probably argue it hasn't gone to plan, I mean, at the end of the day, it's 2 or 3 mil.
Yeah.
No, I think he's been really good. I think Partey is obviously a quality player. It's a bit of a different signing because
I think that was a bit of an overspend. I think that was 45 mil for 27-year-old. My question is,
in terms of what he's offered us and what he can offer us, I don't think there are many better players at doing what he does than him. Certainly not in the league. And the example I'd throw at you to counter what you've just said is Fernandinho. Man City signed Fernandinho when he was 28. They've gone on to win 3 league titles since they brought him in. Now, I'm not saying Partey's going to have that same effect for us, but there are definite signs already that he brings to our midfield something that nobody else can bring in terms of how he gets across the ground. He's very good at winning the ball, positionally very aware. He's a good passer between the lines. He can carry the ball. And obviously, we know we're dearth of creativity, and I'm not saying he's come in and he solved that. But his performances since he's come in, I think, have been good. I think he was really, really integral to our win against Man United. And I think there's certainly signs already that he can offer us a lot. Now, 45 million, in this market is probably, it's quite a bit of money. But then I'd kind of, I'd level it. You look at what, some other clubs have spent on some other players in that window.
Yeah,
It's 45 million on him. And I know Chelsea have more money available to them than us, but they spent 50 on Chilwell. They've spent 75 on Kai Havertz.
Yeah, I mean, what worries me the most is you said about Fernandinho. I don't think you can. Fernandinho's 33 and he's still being amazing. I don't think you should ever plan for that to be a thing. You
don't plan for it. I don't think you plan for it. I think the idea with Partey is you bring him in, he gives you something that no one else gives you. He can then get us, hopefully, not on his own, but with good signings around him, he can get us back into the Champions League. And it's sort of something you can make your money back on and you can reinvest, you can go again, you can kind of bring in someone maybe like him, but younger, that can eventually replace him in the team. So I think I still think it was a good signing. I think only time will win the race, right? We've only seen, him play 3 or 4 games for us.
I look at Torreira go the other way and I just think,
Partey's a better player than Torreira.
As a ball winner.
100%.
I look at
Torreira, decent ball winner, but I think, I have a little bit of sympathy with him in the fact that I think his deployment by Unai Emery was nothing short of a disgrace.
I don't think anyone played him in his right position.
It was ridiculous. His form did dip in the first season after Christmas. I think it was a bit of burnout because when he first came in, he didn't actually start until sort of 6-7 games into the season. Then he kind of played every game till the end of the season.
Arsenal fans were loving
in that season. We really, if you think about that season, we really, really lost it towards the end of the campaign. I think part of it was the pressure of trying to get in the top 4 and trying to win the Europa League at the same time. But also part of it was definitely there was a physical drop off, and he was a good example of that because he was really good up till Christmas. He was pretty poor for the rest of that campaign. Comes back next campaign and he's not starting, and then when he is starting, he's starting in the wrong position. But what I would say to you is everything he did for us, I still think Partey can do. If you're saying he's slightly worse at ball winning, I think he's better than him in most other attributes. He's quicker across the ground. He's more of a physical presence.
If you're spending 45 million and you're sending Torreira the other way, you'd have to. Did you get any money for Torreira? Or
it's a loan deal this year. I think the idea with it is they loan him. There's no obligation to buy. But if he's good for them, they'll probably look to do it. Atletico are cash strapped, right? So they were never going to buy him. Most people weren't going to buy him. This is the problem with Arsenal. The business they did in the summer, a lot of clubs knew which players were out of favour, which players we wanted to sell. So they kind of just waited till the end of the window and went, we'll give you, we'll take him on loan, or we'll give you, they might have offered 5 million. Do you know what I mean? Like derisory offers, where in a normal market you turn around and you go, do one, but we weren't in the position to do so. So
and if the manager's not going to play in the right position, what's the point in having him there?
I look, as I said, I blame more of Torreira. And the thing with Torreira, so last season he obviously start of the season he was playing out of position. Then Emery gets sacked. Arteta comes in. Arteta brings him back in. He plays quite well. He had a few really good games. We beat Man United. I remember he was really good. And then he got an injury. He got an injury against Crystal Palace. Went off. He was out for a few weeks. Comes back, gets injured against Portsmouth, and he would have been out for the rest of the season had the season continued.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Obviously, it was delayed. He comes back. He doesn't really get in the team. He plays a few minutes here and there, and it could have been different for him. It honestly could have been different for him. I don't hold any. I don't know. I don't have a grudge against him.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I wish him well with his career. But I just look. He was one of those players. Had he stayed, I wouldn't have been unhappy about it. But in a market where you need to make money on players, and I know we haven't, but we've got him off the wage book with the option to kind of sell him next year and get some of the money back for Partey. I think that he was one that you could afford to sell. And we'll get on to some others that potentially will fall into that bracket next summer.
Sure.
But yeah, that's where I stand on the business we did this summer and the manager to this point.
So players are out of contract. So this is, I think this is an opportunity for Arsenal to recruit some of that money we talked about. Because the players that are out of contract.
Well, look at it. I mean, if you look at the players that are out of contract, it's like 3 million. It's almost £750,000 worth of wages off the wage book.
Yeah, a week.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's per week. You got Ozil off there. You got Louise off there. You got Mustafi off there. Socrates off there.
So that's what. But then look at the Willian deal and go, you're spending this money wrong almost in the way that you've taken this issue. And
certainly from what we've seen to this point, you think so, wouldn't you?
So in my head, that's a massive opportunity. Ozil, I think,
definitely.
It was only 250 grand, and then 100 grand if you made an appearance, I think. But
there'll be some sort of incentive related to him playing, and this is why I think with the Özil situation, there's a lot going on there. I don't think it's that he's done one thing. I think there's a real combination of factors that are contributing towards him not being named in matchday squads. It won't just be, he said this or he's done this in training. It will be a lot of things. That will be part of it. The money will be part of it. Maybe his antics off the pitch will be part of it, where he's gotten a bit political at times, even though I don't necessarily disagree with him. I think the pay cut situation will be part of it.
Yeah,
where he refused to take a pay cut. I think that he wasn't bad when Arteta came in, but he wasn't indispensable. I think if he were playing really well, you just cast those things aside and go, no, it's fine, he can play.
He's just not a 350 grand a week player.
No,
he was in 2014, 2015, but he's not anymore.
The problem was, people won't remember this. Obviously, people remember we let Sanchez go in that same window that we give him the 350 grand a week. But what people probably won't remember is he played really well in the corresponding months leading up to it. I remember we played Tottenham at home. We beat him 2-0. He was the best player on the pitch. He played really well against Chelsea and Man United at home in December, early January.
Was that the year that Chelsea won the league?
No, it was a year after. The game you're thinking of, I remember that one vividly, actually, because we sponsored the match ball that day, right? So what you got to do is you got to go down and meet some of the players, and you chose one that you'd have a photo with before the game. And the guy I chose was Özil. In fact, I've got it here.
But he absolutely ran the show that day.
And he ran look at that. That's the day we beat Chelsea 3-0. And I sponsored the match ball, and he was honestly, he was as close to unplayable as I've seen an Arsenal player.
That's the day that Chelsea won the league.
In my life, supporting them.
That was another one. And the game against Arsenal v Man United where De Gea went supernova.
That was when he got all the assists. So you're right. If you look at those periods, there are certainly performances he gives where you think, bloody hell, you could pay him more than 350 grand. I mean, on his day, honestly, he's unplayable.
Especially in your current scenario,
he's just way
no
too
creativity.
respected by Arsenal fans and rival fans. They just go, he's a bum, he's lazy, doesn't run, he doesn't head the ball. His technical ability on the ball is as close to genius as I've seen at Arsenal. I think, honestly, the only person I've seen that's better than him is probably someone like Bergkamp.
Could it be Arsene leaving, Wenger leaving, and then the new manager?
I think Wenger was certainly a good manager for him.
Yeah.
His style of management. I think Sanchez leaving was part of it. They were both worse for it. You look at it. I know there's mitigating factors with regards to both their performances after it, but Sanchez went Man United, Özil stayed. They were both worse after it. Yeah. So much worse for not playing with each other. And I remember that when those two played in the team together, maybe with the exception of someone like Cazorla when he played, but he was injured quite a bit. No one else was on their wavelength across in the attacking areas. They just the link up, the connection they had, it was almost telepathic at times. So, I don't want to talk too much about Özil, but it's sad to see the way his Arsenal career is going to end because think about it. We brought him in, hadn't won a trophy for 9 years. We win the FA Cup. Then we win another FA Cup, and we won 2 years later. And I know he didn't play last season, but we've won 4 FA Cups since he's been there. In the 9 years before he came, we'd won naught, with nothing.
You're a bit of a joke about it, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't disrespect the guy too much, but I think I think for what he's given us, he's had his faults and he's had his poor performances certainly, and I've called him out for it. But I think he deserved. I just wish it had gone differently. Yeah. I wish it had gone differently. If he'd been playing and he hadn't been playing pretty well, but and he's still in the team, but he wasn't playing great, and it's like, okay, he's going to go at the end of the season, but we've tried to make it work, and it just isn't. I could accept that, but we aren't better for not having him in there. We're not playing any better. Certainly not.
Also, we'll move on to players that we would sell. So
absolutely.
If an opposite came in. The ones I've got are, it's only 3. There's Kolasinac, Cedric,
and they tried to.
Yeah, and Reece Nelson. I think
they're good points, those actually. So sorry, go on, go for it.
I just think they're not benefiting the squad in any way, shape, or form. Cedric,
okay. Let's talk. They're all sort of different profiles, right?
Yes.
So, Cedric, I completely agree with you. I think it looks more and more ridiculous by the minute. The problem was, if you think back, Rob, right, when Arteta comes in, it was really weird because Maitland-Niles was playing at the time because Bellerin was still injured, and sort of recovering from his ACL. Maitland-Niles was in the team. Maitland-Niles played really well in the few games before Bellerin came back. I remember we played Chelsea at home and we ended up getting beat late in the game, but he was really good. Man United, he absolutely pocketed Rashford, who, if you think back last December, was absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
Like, he was scoring every game. He'd scored at Man City. He scored against Newcastle. He just scored at Burnley. He'd scored something like 7 or 8 goals in 8 games. He was playing really well. It was like one of his purple patches last season. And he didn't get a kick. And part of it was we played really well on the day, but part of it was Maitland-Niles was excellent.
Maitland-Niles is really experienced for his age. He's played a lot of minutes.
He has. For his age, he's played a lot of minutes. And I know later in the season he kind of came back into the reckoning. But what then happened was he fell out of favour. So Bellerin started coming back into the team. And we don't really know exactly what went on with Maitland-Niles, but he fell out of favour. He wasn't in any squads. And we sort of were like, okay, we need to get a right back, or certainly the hierarchy. Okay, we need to get a right back in the window. So we decided to get Cedric, and it's just an example of like really poor business. He's out of contract in 6 months. We get him on loan, we pay a loan fee, and then we pay another fee at the end of the season to actually bring him in. And he's been really, really average. He's just an average player. Yeah, he doesn't do anything that Maitland-Niles couldn't do. And the problem is, Bob, Maitland-Niles came back into the reckoning later in the season. Think about every big game we won later in the season. He played against Man City in the semi-final, was absolutely brilliant. Played against Liverpool. Actually, I don't think he did play against Liverpool in the day. I think he was rested for the semi-final. Played in the final against Chelsea, though. Was really good down the left-hand side.
And he's versatile.
And he's a bit of a weird one. He's definitely
play
better than Cedric.
Play on both sides.
He's very versatile. And I wouldn't be looking to sell him. But then I look at it this season and I think he's not played that much. I think he's only started 1 game in the league, which was Liverpool away. He doesn't play in the Europa League. He plays Cedric. So he ends up not starting in the league. He's always on the bench. But he doesn't play in the Europa League, so he doesn't actually play that much. And I kind of look at it and think there was an offer in the summer from Wolves about 15 million, which I actually thought he's worth more than that. Maybe not in this market, but as a player and what he can bring, he's definitely worth more than that. Don't sell him. But if you'd said to me, he's not going to play as much, he's going to play as much as he has this season, right? And if you get that 15 million, you can put it towards getting someone like Husamawa in. Yeah. You'd have done it, wouldn't you? Yeah, exactly. Even though I wouldn't have done it at the time, you'd have done it now.
Because, and if you're planning for the season, you should think about that. I don't think they shouldn't do that on the whim.
100%. 100% agree. On Cedric, I think it's a really, really bang average bit of business. I think it's a 4-year contract.
It's a bit of Arsenal business.
It just reeks, to be honest with you. I mean, I think someone like Pablo. So we brought Pablo Mari in at the same time, and he kind of gets unfairly lumped together with Cedric because we've done the 2 deals. We haven't really seen Mari play, so I'm prepared to give him a bit of leeway.
He was in that City game where you lost, but he came off injured.
He got subbed off, and we conceded 3 goals.
Yeah.
When he's played, he's been all right. He had sort of one moment against West Ham where he slipped and Antonio got in. But actually, when he's been on the pitch, we haven't conceded a goal, even though it's a small sample size. So I'm prepared to give him a bit longer because I understand why they did it. He's a left footer. I think Arteta likes this idea of playing a left footer on the left because I think he likes this idea of it opens up more passing lanes to build the attacks. He's very methodical about how we build out from the back. And part of it is your centre backs being able to distribute the ball. I mean, we brought Gabriel in on the left to do a similar job. So, on Cedric, look, I'll tell you what, if an offer of 5 million came in next summer, I'd just take it and get rid of him. But I don't think we will. I think he'll be around. You've got to ask yourself on that, why was that deal done? Is it because of his agent relations? It's the same with Willian, by the way. They're both represented by Kia Jarabchin, who was friends with Raul Sanllehi when he was at Arsenal and good friends with Edu, who's now obviously managing the football side. So it's a bit murky why some of those deals were done.
Or it's just, I think Arsenal have this view that if you can get if you can get a guy that knows some agents in, that means you'll get stuff for cheaper. But all that happens is you just get second-grade quality players.
He wasn't even starting for Southampton. No. So and then on the others, Kolasinac we were looking to sell, and there was a deal in place for him to go to I want to say Leverkusen. I can't remember if it was on loan or they were going to pay for him because I remember Fabrizio said they were going to pay for him, and then they didn't end up paying for him. Then he nearly went there on loan, didn't end up going there on loan. He's still hanging around. I'd get rid of him. I don't know what he's still doing here, to be honest. He's had his time. He just isn't up to it defensively. Since Tierney's come into the team, you can just see the difference. And Saka, when he's played, the difference in quality when they get into those final third positions, they can pick a man out. So when he was brought in, everyone's like, yeah, he can get forwards. But when he gets forward, He just hits it across. He never, when he puts the ball in, he's never like trying to put it into an area or trying to pick a man out. It's a bit hit and hope. So with him, again, I completely agree. I'd be looking to sell him. Nelson's a difficult one.
I've not seen Nelson play well since his first 2 months at Hoffenheim before he got injured. And
he was all right there, wasn't he? And he had a few injury problems. It's a weird one this season again because when he's played it in the League Cup and he's played a couple of Europa League games here and there, and he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good in those games, and it's kind of like this is where I sort of slightly am a bit critical of Arteta. More so with Joe Willock than Nelson, and I'll get on to why. But it's not merit-based selection with some of his Premier League starting 11s in his squad. Those guys don't even get in the squad. And if you're telling me they can't bring us something different to what we're already seeing at the moment, I think it's a joke. I mean, someone like Joe Willock's been man of the match in the 2 Europa League games, the last 2 Europa League games, doesn't even get in the squad for the last 2 Premier League games. Man United, I get to an extent. Aston Villa, I don't understand at all how he doesn't even get a look in.
Smith-Rowe in that because he was so good at Huddersfield. And we've seen
Smith-Rowe's been a bit injured. Smith-Rowe's a complex one because I think he doesn't seem to be able to get fit at the moment. Yeah. He seems to pick up knocks and setbacks here and there. If it develops over the season that he's still not playing, I agree with you. I'll take a dim view of that. But at the moment, I'm sort of prepared to put it down to lack of fitness. He had injury problems when he went on loan. Who did he go on loan to the season before? He went on loan to someone in Germany. Might have been Leipzig.
Maybe, but last season was on
loan. And he didn't play because he just kept getting injured.
Last year was at Huddersfield though, and he was really good. And
he was good at Huddersfield. And that's what kind of gives me hope. We don't have many players that can do what he does. I remember reading an article on The Athletic about how he's one of very few players trained at sort of like England youth level that's prepared to run in behind. It's very rare to get a player that their first instinct is to get in behind the defence in that position. So him, I'm prepared to wait on. Nelson, if an offer of 20 million comes in, I think we'd take it.
Yeah,
I think we would. And I think that, it's one of those where he's never bad when he plays. He kind of plays like a player with a point to prove. And it's beneficial at various points because he gets about and he gets on the ball and you want that. You want a player to be showing for it. But then other times he kind of looks like he's trying too hard. He's being a bit too individual. And, I've not seen anything from him in the Premier League to suggest that moving him on would be an awful idea. I'd like to see him at least get a chance, though, before I'd be prepared to do that.
So there's others we had the discussion of if the right offer comes in. So I said Aubameyang, but we've also got Xhaka, Willian, and Lacazette in there. So Aubameyang, if an offer of 30 mil plus comes in and they're willing to pay his wages, that would probably come to a total of about a £50 million deal. And I just think you can find players in the market right now that are good enough, and Lacazette can do that job.
I'll counter that with saying I think Lacazette is much more likely to be sold. So Aubameyang's just signed his contract. They've clearly shown a willingness to keep him, and unless his form completely falls out the sky for the rest of the season and he just can't buy a goal, he will outscore Lacazette, and I think that they'll be more willing to keep him than Lacazette. Lacazette's got 1 year left on his deal at the end of this season, and that's where Arsenal now, and they haven't done it in the past, but they've said they're going to start doing it. It's decision time. Contract or you're gone. You're getting sold. And I think with him, his performances at the moment and over the last season sort of haven't really shown why he should get a new deal. And of course, everything can change. And if he goes and scores 20 goals in the league over the remainder of the period, I'm more than happy to change my mind on it. But at the moment, I think he's more likely to be sold. And I think that it would be they'd be well within their rights to do it. I think that what he's bringing the team at the moment, Arteta's ideal striker would be that, but someone that's better at doing it, better at pressing the midfielders when they get the ball, better at pressing the centre-backs when they get the ball, more clinical than he's currently being. I mean, if you look at some of the games we've had recently, although we don't create many chances, when we are creating them, they're falling to him and he's not putting them away. So that combined with the fact that his average position is really deep on the pitch, he's kind of his hold-up play, which I'm not saying it's his best facet, but when he got player of the season, a big part of that was his link play and his pressing were really good. And both of those things now are just, he doesn't look physically capable of doing what the manager wants him to do. So I think with Aubameyang, you've got to caveat that with the fact that Lacazette has got a year left on his deal, and I think is more likely to be sold.
Fair enough. with the striker position in general football, I actually think there's lots of options. Like
Definitely. And that's what I would add as well. I would like to see us bring someone in who does something different to what all of our strikers do at the moment. I'm not saying bring in a complete target man, but I've said this before. Like, we've got some quite good crosses in our squad, especially on the left. We have kind of this left-sided bias where Saka and Tierney especially will get on the ball and put good crosses into good areas, but it never looks like anyone in the box, especially Lacazette and Aubameyang, are going to score with headers and get on the end of them. So I don't think it would be a bad idea for us to bring in someone that their attributes are more along those lines. I'm not saying they have to be our starting striker, but when we put Nketiah on for Lacazette, in terms of scoring those sort of goals, he's not going to score them either. He's 5'9". So with the striker situation, you're absolutely right. You can get, there's a lot of different qualities a striker can bring. You just have to look at some of the examples across the Premier League. But I would like to see someone more contrasting to what we've got at the moment. Whether that's what they go for, I'm not sure. But I do think that they will be looking to recruit a striker next summer. That's my prediction.
Back on Aubameyang, how many goals do you think what level of striker do you think he is to how many goals he'll get? Because in my head, he's just a 15 goal a season player now, and I think
that's quite reactionary.
I've just seen his numbers decline, and his numbers last year weren't.
But that's combined with the fact that Arsenal have declined. Their overall output has declined in attacking areas. We've regressed since he's come in. I mean, you can't look at this. Look at the seasons. He's come in mid-season 17-18. We've scored less and less goals every campaign, and it's easy to make the argument that he's getting older, so he's not as up to it. But I would like to see him in an attacking team. I still think he's more than capable of scoring the goals. His performances this season haven't been good. They haven't been good. I'm not going to dress it up. He hasn't got the ball loads, but when he has, he's not been great.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm more sympathetic to him than a lot of people maybe are. But you got to call a spade sometimes. He hasn't been playing well. Do I think that he's completely fallen off? No, I don't. I still think that if the chances that have fallen to Lacazette fall to him, he puts at least half of them away. So you got to question his deployment. He's not being played as a striker. I know he played on the left last season a bit, and he still got 20 goals. But I still think I'm not saying it would fix the team completely, because I know there's other faults there. But for him, he will get more goals if he plays up front.
So do you think he's more than 15 goals a season player?
I'd be prepared to say that, definitely, on record. We can come back and we can revisit this.
I've just seen it. So it's last year at Dortmund. He was taking 3.7 shots. Then the last season where he got 22, he was joint top scorer with Salah and Mane. He was taking.
So that would have been 18-19.
Yeah, right? He was taking 3. And then it's dropped to 2.6.
I know, but again, look at Arsenal's expected goals scored, chances created across that period, and it will have declined. I'm almost certain.
But then this season he's taking
with Aubameyang, I know your views on him. Mine are slightly different. I'm not completely averse to it. If he continues to not score and not contribute, I don't think you'd get 30 million for him, his age profile and his wages. But I'm not going to say you can't replace him. I do think that him at his best, so like sort of the back end of last season, there weren't many players that would have scored the goals he would have in that time. I genuinely don't think. I mean, he basically won us the FA Cup in those 2 games. The way we played, we didn't get many chances, but when they did, they all fell to him, and he took them, right? I don't think there's anyone else in our squad that can do that, and I don't think there's many other players in world football currently that I've seen. I'm not saying there aren't any, but that I've seen as obvious examples that will come in and score more goals than he will over this campaign. So that's where I stand on it now.
Yeah, I just in general in football, I don't think you can rely, unless they're an absolute anomaly, I don't think you can rely on someone's finishing. Just because
you can't rely on their finishing, and I agree he needs to do more in his overall play. But just like, I sort of look at it as his role in the team is to score goals. I know you're going to say he needs to contribute more, but ultimately over the past few campaigns, his role in the team has been to be getting on the end of those chances, and he's been doing that. I haven't seen anything in him physically yet that suggests he can't still do that. So I don't think it's fair at this point to put it down to age.
If a deal came in for 30 mil, would you take it or not? Or...
No, not at the moment.
Wouldn't you?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. But things can change.
Yeah, true. Xhaka.
Xhaka's being linked with a move. Xhaka's being linked with a move to Inter now. I wouldn't want to see that. I don't think we need to swap Phil for Eriksen. I think they're better than there are better options out there. So I'm not saying Eriksen's a bad player, but like I'd prefer to see us go for some of the other players we're being linked with. Xhaka, yeah. I mean, we'll get on some attacking midfielders, I'm sure, but there are better ones we could go for with a higher ceiling than what I think Eriksen has now at this point in his career.
Yeah, we'll get Eriksen. No.
So with Xhaka, he's been pretty good since Arteta's come in. Obviously, he convinced him to stay last December. He wanted to go because of the whole fallout with the fans and hadn't really been in the team. And he was kind of halfway out the door. The manager's convinced him to stay. And his performances have been good. I mean, when he's played, he's been good. But I do think with Partey coming in and kind of the performance that him and El Neni gave at Old Trafford, I'm not saying there's not a role for Xhaka to play, because there definitely is over a season. But the dependence on him, I mean, if you look at our results last season with and without him, we were a lot better with him, particularly when Arteta came in. We didn't lose many games at all when he played. The dependence on him, I think, is wavering, and it will lessen. So, again, he gives us something that some of our other midfielders give us, in the sense that he's more of a defensive-minded player, to pick the ball up and give it to others to build the attacks. I think we've got players that can do that and a bit more. So I like Granit Xhaka. I think there's a lot of qualities he brings to the team, but if an offer of what you're suggesting came in, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think, especially, yeah.
No-brainer. But, again, we'll see, right?
And with Willian, I was like 5 mil, and they'll pay their wages, and just hope there's some club like
lucky to get that at the moment. He's said on record as well he wants to finish his career in Brazil, so I just don't see how anyone's going to take him, knowing that he would want to go there pretty soon after. So no, I totally agree.
You just got to hope that someone like an AC Milan just comes in and makes a terrible decision.
Inter Milan have this obsession with signing washed-up Premier League players, don't they?
And they're not going to win the league this year as well.
Yeah, I don't know how they're doing it. Young, I mean, Lukaku is a good player, and United didn't get the most out of him. But some of the other players they've signed is just like, what?
Vidal's there. Anyway,
Ashley Young,
Moses,
Victor Moses. Good God.
So what we're going to do now is go through each position and say what we think.
Yeah.
And look at the squad depth, and maybe we'll do the signings connected to each area here as well. So
yeah, it makes sense to do that.
Goalkeeper, Leno.
So the goalkeeper situation is an interesting one. Go on. You say
we've got Leno, and we've got there's Runnison, and there's
which is what I was going to add to this discussion. The biggest issue I have with it at the moment, and it is difficult with a backup keeper, but there's no competition being provided to Leno in the slightest. This guy is so obviously inferior to him. I mean, Leno's played 2 of the 3 Europa League games and the League Cup games.
Yeah.
He's only not played 1 game this season. So there's 2 issues with that. One is that he could get injured. And I know you could just get an injury on the training ground, but he's more likely to get injured playing than he is sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you increase the chances. And the second thing is...
I just think back to the Maupay incident at the end of last year.
That could happen any minute you're playing,
Yeah.
The second thing is, and this is the bigger issue, I think, you saw last season that maybe it wasn't obvious at the time, but he had competition in Martinez, and he played well last season. Like, before he got injured, I know he makes a couple of high-profile errors here and there. He's one of those goalkeepers, but he overperformed his expected goals against over the season.
Yes, as a post-shot XG, he was up by 1.7, I think.
Yeah, he was. I think he was one of like less than 10 goalkeepers to do that. So he's better than, I'd say, of all the goalkeepers in the league, he's certainly one of the best ones. He's not the best one, but he's not a liability. The biggest issue I have with it at the moment is there's no competition being provided to him. So if he has a dip in form, which he's been fine this season. He's not been great. He's not been awful. He's just been okay. I'd say we've probably conceded the amount of goals we should based on the shots he's either saved or that have gone in. There's been a couple where he might have palmed it out into better areas. I always think it's harsh on a goalkeeper to kind of, when they're just reacting and pushing it out, I think people are often like, they should be looking to palm it out here or palm it out there. But sometimes it just gets hit at you and you instinctively stick your hand out,
Yeah.
On him, I think that I'm worried about the lack of competition. So if he does have a really severe dip in form, I know we were looking to bring the guy in from Brentford.
David Raya.
That might get done next summer. I don't get the impression this other guy. I think this other guy's a third keeper. I think he's in there because Martinez wanted to go.
Yeah.
But I would have just rather seen us go for a veteran, to be honest, than him. Someone that could... Bloody Joe Hart at Tottenham, to be honest. I think he would have been a better shout than this guy.
Or maybe get Gazzaniga.
Gazzaniga. So the goalkeeper situation, it's not, until it comes to a sort of crescendo, I don't worry about it at the moment. I'm not saying if I'm looking at potential signings and we're working on a budget, I wouldn't be looking to bring a goalkeeper in at the moment. I think he's fine for where we are at the moment. I think he's a good enough goalkeeper to get you into the Champions League. Whether he can win you the league, you're looking 3-4 years down the line. So at this stage,
I think
he's fine.
What you could do is look at the backups that big teams have and kind of sell them by saying you can get minutes here. So, for example, Alexander Nubel, he was at Schalke last year.
And he's going to Bayern, isn't he?
He's gone to Bayern on a free.
He's gone to Bayern on a free.
Yeah, he went in the summer, and I think you could, if you offered it to buy you make a quick profit in a COVID market, they might be able to take it.
Probably, but the thing is, mate, you just can't keep us happy. So say we bring him in, he competes with Leno, he's better than Leno, he goes in the team. Leno's going to do what Martin has said. Okay, I want to leave. I want to play number one somewhere else.
I think Nubel's ceiling is so much higher than Leno's.
I've not watched enough of him.
Nubel can become Neuer. I am. That's neck on the line.
The only thing I would say is they're both German. Leno gets in the squad over him at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know it might be that he plays for a better team. I don't really watch much of Schalke, but Leno gets in the Germany squad and he doesn't at the moment. So I can only judge him off that right now. You might have watched more of him and think that there's better potential. But it might be a good signing. But at the moment,
he got dropped.
I wouldn't be.
He got dropped when he confirmed the move to Bayern, so he hasn't had many minutes since then. And he hasn't.
He's one of those things. But Leno's just always been in the squad. He gets in there, usually behind Ter Stegen and Neuer, but he gets in the squad. He's been on their radar for a while, so I think he's fine. You're right. I think he's one of those goalkeepers as well. I think he's good in a busy team, and it'd be interesting to see if we got to that next level and we were, say, competing for league titles, and we weren't quite as defensively active as we had been, particularly under Emery, when you saw some of the best of him when he's making loads and loads of saves. It'd be interesting to see how he does. I think he struggles a bit with concentration sometimes when I watch him.
Yeah.
He's one of those goalkeepers that he's really good when he's like getting loads of shots fired at him. He's a decent shot stopper, but like I've seen him a couple of times when we've not been very busy in games, just make mistakes that are a bit inexplicable for someone that has made the saves that I've seen him make as well. It's one of those things. But no, goalkeeper's not a massive concern right now. The only thing I'd say is a concern is the bloody backup guy.
Right backs, we talked a lot about. Left backs, so I've got Saka and Tierney there. And then got Kolasinac obviously as the third choice, but
I wouldn't necessarily class Saka as one. If Kolasinac moves on, I'd be looking to get someone else in. Backup. I don't see Saka's future position there unless it's a left wing back. I certainly don't see him as a left back in a back four. He has done it, but when he was doing it in the sort of early days of Arteta, Xhaka would drop in as a sort of like an unorthodox left back when we were building attacks, so to sort of like fill in for him. Saka gives you a lot more going forward. He knows his defensive positions quite well. He's had some good games at left back and left wing back, but I wouldn't want to see him playing there.
Do you think Tierney? How far can Tierney take you as your left back? Is my question. Can he take you to the top? Is my question. I think he can take you to the Champions League. I don't think he can take you to that.
I think he can. I think he has a high ceiling. He's only 23. I think that he does have stuff to learn about his game. I think particularly defensively sometimes. He's a good competitor, but just sometimes positionally. But then would you have said Andrew Robertson could take Liverpool to a Champions League and a Premier League before they signed him? You know? And I think Tierney is better now than he was then. Yeah, personally.
I remember when Tierney came out of Scotland, I think he was Celtic captain at the time, but there was a lot of hype around him anyway. He was playing centre back for Scotland because they had Robertson, obviously.
Yeah, because they've got Robertson. That's what I mean. He can play that left centre back role and provide you stuff going forwards as well. He gets up the pitch, so he's a good athlete. He's a bit injury prone, but he's sort of shaking that off a little bit in the last few months. Yeah. He's young. He definitely is made of the right stuff. I think his attitude and his commitments is superb, and there's a lot of players in our squad that could learn from that.
I like the way he's commanding of players older than him. So there's a point in one of the games...
He's authoritative.
He told Aubameyang to get in, which you think of as a 23-year-old taking the highest earner and top scorer.
But he's an experienced 23, isn't he? He's had so many minutes. I know it's for Celtic, but he's had a lot of minutes. He's had a lot of minutes at international level.
And he's had minutes leading a team as well. He was the leader of that Celtic team.
100%. And time will win the argument again. But I from what I've seen... is there an obvious better left back that we could sign at the moment? Absolutely not. I think his ceiling is high. I think that he definitely can take us to the next level. And I think that if I was looking to sign a left back, it would be someone to provide reliable backup to him. I wouldn't be looking to replace him.
Centre back. This is a bit weird because you've obviously got 3 of them going out on a contract.
We've got so many centre backs at the moment, but
so there's Gabriel
3
Saliba,
of them are going to be leaving at the end of the season, more than likely.
Gabriel Saliba, Holding, Maui, Chambers, Mustafi, Luiz, and Socrates.
Yeah. So I'm going to make my observation, then you could maybe throw a couple of names in there that you might have in mind. Of those 8, Luiz, Mustafi, and Socrates. Luiz has been pretty good since Arteta's come in, but I'd expect him to leave at the end of the season just because of his age. If he plays fucking out of his skin before the end of the season, he might get an extra year. But with the guys we've got at the moment, I think it's likely he'll go at the end of the season. Mustafi will go.
Even if he played out,
and Socrates will definitely go. Sorry.
Even if he played another year, I don't think I'd give him. Even if he played out his skin, I think he'd give him.
I think it'd been a less. I think if he played another year, you'd see someone like, depending on who we keep around, maybe Pablo Mari or Chambers or Holding getting more minutes than him. He would just be in there as a kind of emergency backup. He wouldn't be playing every week like he is at the moment when he's fit. Obviously, we don't know with Saliba. It's really difficult because he hasn't played. It's exceptional circumstances. It's unfortunate circumstances as to why he hasn't. He kind of needs minutes, and I think the problem is Arteta at the moment just doesn't seem to be willing to risk him in the Premier League, and we didn't register him for the Europa League. So
I think I would have loaned him back to Saint-Etienne.
They tried to. They just couldn't get it done. They couldn't get the paperwork done in time. So that might be something they look to in January. And then of the others, I think that Pablo Mari is obviously going to be there next season because otherwise they wouldn't have signed him. Whether he's there beyond that, we don't know because we've not seen him play. And then it's kind of a toss-up between Chambers and Holding. I think it will depend on who there is a market for. So who wants to buy one of those two. I don't think it will be between who's better to stay because I don't think there's a lot between them. They're both not the quickest. Chambers is probably...
Summer?
What's that?
Didn't they both come in the same summer?
No, Holding was we got Chambers from Southampton. Chambers has been out on loan a couple of times is the thing. So Holding came in from Bolton, as you know, in 2016. Holding's best stuff comes in a back 3. So in that season, we brought him in. He had a good run towards the end of that campaign, playing in a back 3. Obviously, when we won the FA Cup, Wenger kind of went to a back 3 because Chelsea were doing it and ended up winning the league doing it. And he played well on the right side of that back 3. Or it might have been left side, actually. I think he kind of varied between the two depending on who was available. But he played in that back 3 and he's good because you get numbers around him. He's not the quickest. He's not the best 1-versus-1 defender. So in games like Man United, where we're going to have players around him and have a structure and a shape, he's fine because he doesn't get isolated, left on his own to defend space. Where he struggles is games like Aston Villa, where we end up chasing the game. We need to put men forward and we want to play on the front foot anyway. He's not quick enough. He doesn't read the game well enough. He's not good enough in those 1-versus-1 duels to command those areas and be the defender in those games. So I think Chambers is slightly better than him, if I'm honest, but Chambers has had an ACL. So it's really hard to say. Chambers was unlucky because he was playing well before he got injured. He was man of the match. I think we played Everton in Arteta's. He wasn't in charge, but he'd just been appointed manager, so he was in the stands. And then we played Bournemouth, he was suspended. And then we played Chelsea and he was having a really good game against Tammy Abraham in the first half hour. We're 1-0 up and then he goes off with an ACL and hasn't played since. So I'd be prepared to give him more leeway when he comes back in than Rob Holding because I've just seen it a bit too much of Holding recently where he's done certain things and had certain performances where I just think that he's not quite at the level we need. But it'd be interesting to see if you have any suggestions as to who you'd want, you'd be looking to bring in as director of football.
This guy is called Roger Ibanez. He started off the season amazingly for Roma. And as much as people say Serie A is a slower league, there is the opportunity to find gems in there. And he is a young Bonucci-esque. Of course, he's 21, so he's a great age. He's made the most interceptions of any Serie A player this season so far. And the issue is when you're looking for statistics and centre-backs, it's very difficult because we just don't have the data. I'd imagine stuff like people like StatsBomb and football clubs will have that, but for free, you just don't have that. But he's also he's showing numbers that Gabriel shows last year. So you've got to try and look for correlation in these areas. And he's making the most passes into the final third of any defender in Serie A. He's got the highest pass completion of any of those players. And it's a small sample size because we're only, 8 games in, but still. He looks like he could pair Gabriel in a ball-playing team that Arteta would work with. And he's 6'2", 6'3", so he's a good size. I just think he can...
Yeah, the only issue I would kind of identify there, I mean, he sounds like a good player. Not watched him, so I can't, I'd have to watch him in more detail. The only issue I would sort of slightly identify with that is he sounds really similar to Gabriel. And while I think Gabriel's been really, really good, would I want, Gabriel 2 on the right-hand side next to him? Probably not, just because the way Gabriel plays, he's quite aggressive and engaging. He wants to win the ball. He will always sort of like go into duels to win headers, to nick it. If you get 2 centre-backs doing that at the same time, they have to be really, really in tune with each other.
Yeah. I just think he will be good.
Sounds like a good profile. And, again, I'm not... With our centre-back situation, I'm not in the position to be turning my nose up at, suggestions, because we've not by no means cracked the code. We've been better defensively under Arteta, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean the personnel in the back 4 or 5 is, at the level it needs to be. Definitely not. And, we're certainly in a situation where we can improve. Speaking of improving, I think we need to get on to
attacking players.
Probably the biggest issue from this season. Yeah.
So
it kind of comes under midfield, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think you're fine for DMs when you got Partey, El Neni, Ceballos, Willock, Xhaka.
Yeah,
but then
Willock's more of an attacking player, so he's not a creator, but he's kind of what he does, which I like about him, because I kind of mentioned earlier he had a couple of good performances. He's inconsistent. He's technically probably not as secure as some of the other players we've got. But what I do really like about him is he likes to score goals. He will always get into the box and try and get on the end of things and run beyond the striker, which in the last sort of 5 to 10 years of watching Arsenal, I've only really seen one midfielder do consistently, which was Ramsey, where he would be getting in the box and getting on the end of things. And I think one of the biggest issues we've had from midfield is obviously creativity, but another is goal contributions. I mean, if you look at last season, the likes of Xhaka, Ceballos, El Neni wasn't there actually. Who else would have been there? Guendouzi, Torreira. Yeah. I think there was like 3 goals between the 4 of them because they're all quite defensive-minded players. So on Willock, I think he's a sort of slightly different player. I'd be looking to use him, but creativity, Bob, this season.
You lack it, especially if
9 goals in 8 games. I think our XG is pretty much 9. I think it's like 9.12.
It's not like you're underperforming it dramatically.
No, we're kind of at the level we should be at. We're not we're not getting lucky, but we're not getting unlucky. It's kind of
Lacazette, high score of 3. A few plays on 2.
Yeah, 3, but he hasn't scored for 5 games in 5 games. So it's
So and you're taking barely any shots.
The shots is the other thing. So if you look at our shots over campaigns, it's been declining as well.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact statistic, but I think it's something like 9 last season, or it might be 9 this. There's 9 this season. It's 9 shots, or 8 this game. I think it's 8. This is 8 per game. I think we've had 72 shots. It might be 9.
You had 7 against Sheffield United, I think, which shows, and you dominated that game. So
yeah, we did. We just didn't get loads of shots. I mean, their XG was almost nothing. It's same against Fulham. We can control games, but we don't do it by pummeling teams. We do it by. You said this in the podcast we played Man United. We did a really good job of stopping them playing, not by parking the bus and sitting deep, but just controlling the game. But unfortunately, controlling the game with us doesn't always lead to. Well, it doesn't lead to chances.
Yeah, which is. Why you control
what you need? You need to score goals. Because
even
if you could dominate a game for 94 minutes, be 1-0 up, only takes 1 moment to concede a goal.
So Ozil's probably going to go. Smith-Rowe, if there's questions over him.
We don't know. We don't know. And I don't think he's ready. It's the same with Saka differently. Saka's really good, but I worry about our over-dependence on him. He's a young player. He's played 1 season. Games are going to pass him by. And I don't criticise him for that. He was poor against Aston Villa. I don't think he was great against Man United, but we won the game. But he's going to be inconsistent. He's a really good player. He's got some really good attributes. But games are just going to pass him by. It's the same with Smith-Rowe, if you put him in the team. I think it's the same with Martinelli, who we on a side note, we really need to be looking at how we use him when he comes back from his cartilage injury, because I think he gives us something that we desperately need if Aubameyang is to go up front.
I think a lot of Arsenal fans putting a hat on Martinelli coming back.
And that's another thing. We didn't mention him as a striker because he says his position's at left winger, but he can play up front as well. Yeah. He's done it. And I think Arteta's worry with him is that he's a bit too similar to Aubameyang.
Yeah.
They're low touch, high impact players. They don't have many touches in the game. They don't do loads outside of scoring. What I love about Martinelli is he's so good at pressing and winning the ball back. And I think Arteta looks at that and wants to create chances through forcing mistakes in defensive areas at the moment, because we don't have loads of creative midfielders. Our best way to try and pick teams apart is to try and fucking win the ball off them, really hard up the pitch. And he'll help us do that. With regards to central attacking midfielders, you're absolutely right. We don't have loads of options. I think Smith-Rowe is going to be limited to Europa League, and he might even go out on loan unless he kind of has a breakthrough in the Europa League. But as I've said, we've seen players have good games against Europa League opposition this season, and he's been reluctant to play them in the league. So I think with him, you've got to asterisk it with or prefix it with the fact that he's a young player. He's going to be inconsistent, even if he really has a breakthrough year. You can't hang your hat on him, so we need to recruit.
I mean,
So who have you got in mind here?
Also taking as many shots as West Brom and shots on target as Crystal Palace. So
West Brom are bottom of the table.
Exactly. So I've got two players. One is the next Son Heung-min, and the other one is probably Roma's leading.
I think I know who you're going to say.
Lorenzo Pellegrini. £35 million release.
You bloody love this bloke, don't you?
He's the third make key passes in Serie A. He's Maddison for 35 million and doesn't get injured, and he's 24 and will go up in value, and Man United will probably spend.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, look, I haven't watched him, but again, looking at his numbers, what you've said about him, quite a few football outlets have said about him, looks a good player. Looks like he has a high ceiling.
It's just sensible.
It's a low risk transfer because of the profile of it.
And then there's from Real Sociedad, Mikel Oyarzabal. I've just realised I didn't know how to say his name.
That's all right, because I'm going to come on to someone in a minute, and my attempt at pronouncing their name will be equally dismal.
So he's 23 years old, Spanish, and last year there was 9 players that got 10 goals and 10 assists in the league. He's one of them, and then other names are there like De Bruyne, Salah, Messi. Son, I think, was on there as well. And he started the season amazing this way. 6 goals, 2 assists in his first 9 games. He's taking almost 5 shots a game, which is Kane levels. He's making 2.1 key passes, which is Grealish levels. Now, he's not going to keep these numbers up, but no one's been linked with him. Sociedad apparently a little bit might go with the Valencia way. So if you can get him for 25 million, he looks like Son 2 years ago, but younger. So I think he can be just a smart buy that will go up in value and will offer loads.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting with Arsenal because I've seen them linked with a few different players, not the two that you've mentioned, but you're ahead of the curve, so perhaps that might come in time. I have heard from a few outlets that we were linked with Bundida. I don't know how far that will go. Someone reported Ornstein had said it, but he hadn't apparently. He'd said we are looking at attacking midfielder with a right-sided bias, and I think a lot of people just assume that would be Bundida because
I remember he's
played on the right, and he obviously plays as a 10 as well. So I think kind of people put 2 and 2 together and got 22 there, but he might be one.
I love him as well. He
looks. I mean, obviously Premier League proven. I know they went down, but he was pretty decent last campaign. He's clearly playing at a level below him in the Championship
he's making,
as well.
He's making 3.5 key passes per 90 so far this season, which is mad. So last season he was second for key passes. He was making the most defensive tackles and interceptions of any forward. So he'd be great in the pressing system. He was getting enough shots off as well. He was dribbling 2 or 3 times a game. Yeah, like that's what you want in a Premier League player. It
is. You want someone that wants to get on the ball, gets into space, has shots, and looks to put people in.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that at the moment. The 2 names that I'm going to throw at you are, we've been linked to both players. Now, obviously, in the summer, we were heavily linked with Husamawa. That was a deal that I think if the finances were there, we would have done.
Yep.
The finances weren't there, so we didn't do it. I think it's the truth. With him, I definitely would like to bring him in. I've seen him play more than I've seen the other name I'm going to mention play. I've seen him play. He's more of an 8 than a 10, I think. So if you're looking at Arsenal and the formation they play, I think he's someone that will get on the ball in deeper areas. But he's a good carrier, and he can pick a pass and score a goal. I think that's a more difficult deal to do, because I think next summer, or even I think it's unlikely it would happen in January. I think next summer there's going to be real interest for him. I think that the problem was we were the only team that were in for him, not because we're the only team that rated him, but because we're the only team that potentially could do the deal. Someone like PSG, the money wasn't there. Juventus, the money wasn't there. They're teams I think that next summer.
I worry that with Sancho, Man United.
Yeah, I think they'll come again, right? You've got to look at some of these deals and think, did we miss the boat? I think ours one we might have. The other player we're linked with is a player for RB Salzburg, Dominic Szoboszlai. And I apologize. I apologize for my pronunciation there, because I haven't seen much of him. However, I did see the goal he scored the other night for Hungary. And I have seen the quotes from the manager as well, where he said that he is at least as talented and has at least as high a ceiling as Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
So, looking at some of the Arsenal accounts I follow, some of the sort of journalists that have watched him in a bit more detail than I have, looking at what they kind of report on him and what he's good at and what he could do for us. That certainly would be a deal. I mean, he's 20 as well. That's the other thing.
Last year, he got 9 goals and 10 assists in 27 starts.
Do you know what I mean? So that's 19 goal contributions, which would have been the second most for us, I think, or joint second with Pepe. So, and
he's got
that's
time
certainly
as well.
be something.
100%. If he struggles to hit the ground for the first 2 years, he'll still be 22, and he'll still be like, yeah.
The only thing I would kind of strike against that deal is that we need someone to make an impact. So you could do it, but he might not make an impact. I'm not saying you'd get rid of him, but people might then start saying, well, we needed a number 10. We brought this guy in. Looks a really good player, but he's not doing it for us at the moment. We need someone to do it now to get us back into the Champions League. But I think I'm going to put more importance on the fact that I think he does things and looks to do things that we don't have in the squad at the moment. We don't have players that look to take the ball in central areas and look to shoot and create. And he certainly does that. He's technically secure. He will get goal contributions, and we aren't getting them from players in those areas at the moment. So while he might be young and he might be inconsistent, I think that it's something I would definitely be looking to do. Whether they do it in January or whether they look to do it in the summer remains to be seen. But I think that they need to address the creativity issue. If they can do it in January, do it, because this is a season where, you might say, okay, we need 2 or 3 years in our project. I think this is an exceptional season. I really do. I think that someone could get 4th or even 3rd.
I honestly think Leicester could win the league if they're,
You know what I mean? If they put together a run, if we put together a run where we can win, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row, and that's difficult to do, don't get me wrong, but if we can just put a run together at some point, we've got a couple of good fixture lists, I think we really could get top 4. I don't think we will, but I think if we could do it, we'd be in a position to compete. The problem is, I think to do that, we do need to bring in a player of this profile.
Yeah.
In that area. So if there's a chance for them to do it and they think that, okay, it might accelerate the process of getting back to where we need to be, I think it's a no-brainer for them.
I'd personally get Buendia over to Szoboszlai just because he's got that Premier League experience, and
I think that if you look at their market value, they're probably not going to cost much different. It's in the region of 20 to 30 million for either, I think. So it's a toss of a coin for me as well. But I'd definitely be looking to get one of them in.
Man United have started the season terribly, and they're 8 points off top with the game in hand.
Yeah, they go above us. It's mad. It's tight. They're inconsistent. They're going to lose games.
And they've had Martial and Rashford injured.
So, I think Chelsea and Spurs are doing all right at the moment, but I still think they're going to lose games. I think Spurs have had quite a nice fixture list, and now they've got a horrendous one. I think that Chelsea are looking better.
Southampton 5th. It's going to happen.
Well, it's whoever can put together a good run, I think. And to do that, if we can get some good recruitment done, either in the winter or even next summer, looking into next season. We don't know how next season is going to look with the fans. We're not quite sure yet. Obviously, we had the news of the vaccines that might accelerate the process a bit more. You can see a bit more of an end game with it, but it might be a while before we're back to normal and before like what you're seeing in the league is back to normal.
Do you know what it's going to be? It's going to be like the Turkish Grand Prix. Everyone will have their chance when it looks like, oh my god,
it's just who can take it. It's who can kind of.
And that'll be Leicester this year.
That's your prediction.
Yes.
We could have a good year.
Anyway, thank you for listening or watching.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.